What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the Whatnauts review show. This is episode 74. My name is Kyle Springer, and I am joined, as always, by Melissa Wilkinson. Melissa, what's going on?
I had a dream where you tried to go to space.
That sounds amazing.
You told me, hey, show's going to have to go on hiatus. I'm going to space and it's going to take me 40 days to get there. I'm like, Kyle, 40 days is so long. What are you going to do? How are you going to eat when you're up there? And you told me they're going to put me in cryo sleep for 30 of those days. So I only need to pack 10 days worth of food.
10 days in space.
And then I said, no, but what if the cryo sleep malfunctions? What if you wake up early? And then I explained to you in the dream the entire plot of the movie Rocket Man, where that happens.
Right?
I don't want any of Rocket Man to happen to you and you have to stay on Earth.
What if it's the other Rocket Man and I become the next Elton John?
Just covered in sparkles and spangles.
I go out in space and I find some alien planet and then I just start being like, this is music. And I'm like, me.
This is just that movie where there's the one guy who only, there's one guy in the world who remembers the Beatles.
Right, yeah.
Except it's Elton John and you're taking it to space. Hit on her hand.
Fantastic. If you did not know, ladies and gentlemen, here on the review show, we have a different story to talk about each week. We pick something, could be comic book or a movie or a TV show. And this week, we are talking about She-Hulk Volumes 1 and 2 from back in 2004, written by Dan Slott, and I should pull up the artists' names. It's Juan Bobio, and let's see here. Who's the other one? There was one more. Paul Pelletier. I hope I said those names right. But yeah, She-Hulk Volumes 1 and 2. I last week I threw a couple options at you. I was like, I have a theme. I'm not going to tell you what the theme is because it will become very apparent once I list all of these things out. But I pitched comics based off of the new Disney Plus TV shows, or I guess the Marvel Disney Plus TV shows that they announced, I guess, at D23? Or the Comic-Con?
Yes.
It was She-Hulk, Moon Knight, and Miss Marvel. They announced those three, so that's what I pitched. And you wanted to do She-Hulk. Why did you pick She-Hulk?
It sounded like a fun adult career woman romp.
Okay.
Like, Moon Knight is a mysterious ill man, and that sounded stressful. And Kamala Khan, sweet as she is, I didn't want to have to worry about a teen. I know she wouldn't be Miss Marvel if she couldn't take care of herself. But I'm like, I just want to read about a responsible adult role model, please. Right. Please give me She-Hulk.
Yeah, so good. I don't think I've read She-Hulk in pretty much anything. Like, she's maybe shown up in one or two things, or I've seen her like in the background of something, but I have never read anything with She-Hulk in it. So this was a first for me as well, but I had heard good things about Dan Slott's run on the character. We only read the first 12 issues. Apparently, after the ones we read, they relaunched the She-Hulk book, and it started again with an issue 1, which was very confusing to me. So I tried to spell it out that this is the one from 2004. Not the ones after that. But I made that mistake and started reading the wrong ones. And then
Mm,
I went back and finally read these. So, what did you think?
I had a great time. These were really fun, and it gave me what I wanted. I wanted just career stuff, law stuff.
Hmm?
The law stuff was fantastic. I wanted her to party and just be confident and flirtatious, and all of that was there in one big green package.
There you go. But it was like because for me it was a thing of like I don't know what kind of character She-Hulk is. Like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what to expect in that sense, and I think just by the name She-Hulk and that association to the actual Hulk, like I
Yeah.
knew they were cousins. Like that's the one thing that I knew. But beyond
Mm-hmm.
that, I didn't know what to expect, and so I feel like a lot of people just think, oh, this was just the female version of the guy that has
No.
anger problems, and that's it. And that's not the case with this. So I liked that. I was very surprised with that, to say the least. But I also enjoyed this. I will say, as the book went on, I think I liked it less and less. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and those issues of the stuff that came after this that I read, I also did not like. So it
Oh.
was just like, oh, this kid keeps kind of going downhill for me. But I think for the most part, I did have fun. This gave me a really clear picture of what I want from the Disney
Yes.
Plus show. Of like, I want it to be like these first couple issues here. If we do this, if we're in the courtroom, if we do just these wacky cases where it's just like, yeah, how would what happens when Spider-Man wants to sue Jonah Jameson? How does that work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I want that stuff, and it's fascinating and it's fun. Yeah, so I really enjoyed my time with this. It was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into the synopsis for people
Yeah.
who may not have read this yet. We'll just give a short kind of plot synopsis for you guys to go on, and then we'll get into some housekeeping, and then into spoilers.
Mm-hmm.
So this picks up, let's see, with it's a flashback in her college days to
Yeah.
her partying, and then we kind of get to know a little bit about her and who she is with that. But then, for the most part, we see her working for a law firm whose name I am not going to even try to say the whole thing because it was like six
It's
names.
a bunch of folks' names. It's
Yeah,
like
it was like GHK and MLPC3PO.
yeah, oh, I think it's like hold on. It's like Goodman, Lieber, Kurtzberg, Kurtzman, something like that. And Holloway. Holloway's the lead lawyer we're spending most of the time with. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds about right. Um, but yeah, so she goes to work for them, and they have, I guess, it looks not necessarily recently, but they have a superhuman law division that she didn't even
Mm-hmm.
know about. So she goes to work starting on law cases involving superpowered people or costumed vigilantes, stuff like that. Like, how do you deal with time travel in the law, or like extra dimensional beings and
Yeah.
aliens and stuff like that? Or yeah, just like all the strange stuff that you don't necessarily think about when it comes to how would the law handle this stuff? How would they react to the Avengers? Um, and so
Yeah.
that's a lot of fun. She does that. But by the end of the book, she is having a bout with one of her villains named Titania, who may or may not have gotten her hands on a very powerful stone. one of the Infinity Gems. So
Hmm.
there you go. That is a short plot synopsis for you. Did you have anything that you wanted to add on
Ah,
to that?
I want to say that the flashback at the very beginning to her college days is her studying while everybody else is
Oh yeah.
partying. And sh- yeah, and she graduates really highly. She's like top of her class.
Mm-hmm.
She's doing super well academically. But there on graduation day, when all of the other college kids are off with their friends, she's like, I feel hollow. I feel empty. I feel like maybe I didn't spend my college years the right way. And so now She-Hulk has been living it up as this party girl. And she's always She-Hulk. She's never Jennifer. And she parties so hard they they kick her out of Avengers Mansion. She
Right.
parties too hard for Tony Stark. And he's like, "You have to get out of here." And then also this law firm she works at, they're like, "We want Jennifer. You're not allowed to be She-Hulk in the office, in the courtroom, anything about us. You are Jennifer." So it's
Sure.
about her trying to go back to who Jennifer was to see if she can enjoy being the lawyer again as much as she enjoyed being She-Hulk, the superhero.
Yeah. Good stuff. A little bit of housekeeping for you. Last week here on the review show, we covered a TV show called The Terror. We watched season 1 of that. It was on Hulu. It is an AMC anthology speculative horror fiction. It's a whole slew of stuff. But that was a lot of fun, and it is one of Melissa's new obsessions.
I really dug The Terror. It is a season anthology show. So this
Mhm.
first season, all 10 episodes, it's one self-contained story, and it is the tale of a real case of lost ships. In like 1845, these ships went sailing through Arctic Canada trying to find a path from the Atlantic to the Pacific, got frozen in there, everybody died. And so this takes all those historical facts and is like, what if there was also a monster?
Yeah. Which that was a lot of fun. This past week on the Captain's Log, which is one of our other shows, you brought up what it takes to become a knight or a dame in England,
Yes.
and you out dad joked me, and I feel
I,
like I should retire from making
I'm the
puns.
dad now.
Right. So you guys should go check out that to see if you can spot the dad joke that Melissa made in there, because it was fantastic. That being said, let's get on to spoilers for She-Hulk.
Hmm.
There you go. So yeah, if you guys have not read this yet and you want to, it is on Marvel Unlimited. That is where I checked it out. And I'm sure your local comic book store or bookstore might have it as well. Who knows? So you guys should absolutely go check it out. I want to start off with
Uh-huh.
I guess the whole idea of her character. I kind of mentioned this just a bit ago, that I didn't really know what to expect, right?
Yeah.
And that I was kind of like, I knew it probably wasn't going to be, but in the back of my mind, I was like, I wonder if they're just gonna do the like, oh, she like, you wouldn't like her when she's angry kind of thing. And I was hoping they
Yeah.
wouldn't, but I didn't know what else like to expect. And something I noticed, and here I am, a guy talking about girl stuff, so
Yeah.
take this with a grain of salt. But like, the whole metaphor to me was that like when she becomes She-Hulk, she feels strong and confident, right? Like there is this
Hmm.
facet of her that gives her strength in more ways than one. and this whole book is kind of taking her out of her comfort zone, where she like can't really use her powers, even if she wasn't going to be using her powers, so to speak. It's just like she's in a position where she does not feel like herself, and that is making her insecure, right? And so like I feel like in a professional sense, I hear a lot of stories about women who to make it anywhere in the workplace kind of have to put on this strong exterior and this like bitch face to like oh, she's a business woman, and they're asking for her to basically like not be that in one sense. I don't know if you read into that or not, or
not really. And I don't know. Well, this thing is 15 years old. World changes a whole dang bunch in
sure,
15 years.
yeah.
So I don't know how prevalent that, like, I wear shoulder pads so that I look manly.
Well,
I don't
I don't know
know.
if it would go that far, but like she feels
Yeah,
more
but
like
that whole, like,
herself when she
mm,
is the Hulk, when she's hulked out. But when she's just Jennifer, she's like, I don't like I feel like not myself. That makes
yeah,
sense.
Jennifer's relationship to Jennifer is that Jennifer looks very good on paper, but she's not fun to be. This is what the opening scene proves to us. She chooses to buckle down, ignore the parties, and sit down and just
Mm-hmm.
study. And that pays off for her, academically, professionally, super well. But socially and like personally, to some regard, she feels like maybe she made the wrong choice. And I would imagine that the transformation into She-Hulk gives her this fresh new start and a whole new face and a whole new body and everything to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I I don't know any lawyers well. I don't know if that's a partying culture, but superheroes, I bet that sure is. Her main regret was, why wasn't I out? Why wasn't I putting myself out there? Why wasn't I being social and flirtatious and adventurous in that regard? And you're going to space. You're hanging out on, like, Secret Wars planets. You're meeting so many people.
Yeah.
That's the most social experience you could have being a superhero.
Right.
And they're like, you are too much into this. That she's dating a male model at the beginning of the comic, a European underwear model, and
Right.
he's like, I think you what is the phrase? You lack depth. She's like, I lack depth. And I think that's what the book is about. It's finding that mix of what feels good and what looks good on paper. And it's
Okay.
about doing kind of putting all the different things you want to do, all the things you want to achieve together, like layering them. The more layers you have, the more depth you have. Something like that,
Yeah.
because only Law Jennifer, not great. Only big, dazzling superhero, superstar celebrity She Hulk, not great. It's about that middle ground where she gets to do both.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where I think she's figuring out that she can thrive.
Exactly. And I really enjoyed that about the character. Just this idea that like she has powers in both sides of her. Like there is a charisma and this brain on her as Jennifer Walters, but then she also has the like superhero charisma and strength that
Mm-hmm.
comes with She-Hulk, and yeah, it's like she's learning to combine those and stuff like that. Um, yeah, so I enjoyed that a lot. I was also really thankful that like she didn't mention Bruce pretty much the entire time. Like he is not a crutch for her, or she doesn't like
Yeah.
go to him for like, I don't know what to do. What do I do? Oh my goodness, I don't know. She is her own person, and I think that's really important for her
Yeah,
as a character.
isn't the backstory that they're cousins,
Mm-hmm.
and so she was in an accident or something, and they had to call on Bruce to
A
give like a blood
blood
transfusion
transfusion, yeah.
or like something like that, and that's how she got the Hulk virus. I
Mm-hmm.
knew that, but I didn't know. I knew the origin story, but not like really their relationship was. Are they very close? Was he just geographically close? And it's like, well, you're gonna have the best blood for her. Are they friends? Does she call him for advice? Does he call her for advice? I wanted to learn more about that, but we looked at one title out of a whole plethora, a whole world of
Right.
titles about both varieties of Hulk. So I get that not everything, it's not in the first place I looked. Oh
Sure.
boy, I just have to look somewhere else.
Yeah. But that was nice. I like it. It wasn't even mentioned.
Yeah.
So to speak. Like there's sometimes in stories it's nice to just like have something mentioned, like, hey, we know you're thinking this one
Yes.
thing, and so here's our mention of that. But then sometimes you don't need that at all, and I think this was one of those times where you did not need that.
Mm-hmm.
So bravo to Dan Slott on that one. Let's talk about the comics, which sounds strange because you're
Are you
like,
talking about
Kyle,
the comics
we're already
within
talking
the
about
comics, though?
And yes, Melissa, that is exactly it. The comics within the
I
comics.
loved this. The fact that they're like, okay, all of these comics are approved by the Comics Code Authority, which is a federal organization, which makes all of the Marvel comics that we have here in our real world, they exist within the world of the narrative, and they are legally binding documents.
Right.
It's like, well, it says this happened in this issue. This is fact. The government wouldn't have allowed this to be printed if it wasn't based in fact.
It's so stupid, but it's fantastic. I love it. Like I had heard that She-Hulk in her comics was also very self-referential, and she would break the fourth wall and stuff like that. And I think that's maybe a little bit more prevalent in John Byrne's run on the character. I'm not super familiar there, but I had heard that was a thing, but then to see like this take on it, I thought was fantastic. Especially since a lot of the things that they're talking about, or the comics that they reference, was ones that I had read or that we have read for the show, right? So it's like, oh, this is working out perfectly. Like we know what they're talking about when they reference the Infinity Gauntlet comics, because we did that in like episode 4 of the review show. And yeah, like it's neat to see all of that stuff. Yeah, and like it was, I think, one of my favorite parts about the book is that they then have to go use their knowledge of that stuff to at one point where they're like, hey, the ones that we had are destroyed, basically. Let's just go to a local comic book store and ask the people there for help, right? And they kind of make fun of comic book nerds and stuff like that, which I thought was really funny.
I liked the meta level of that. Like, I think at one point, I forget his name, the like research assistant at the
I
law
don't
firm that
remember
is
his
the
name.
big comic book guy. I'm forgetting what his name is, but he like references, he holds up one of the no prizes and he's like talking to the audience like, you need to look at continuity errors not as problems to yell about, but as a fun challenge for yourself.
Yeah, like take
Explain it away if you
everything
like it so
into,
much.
like, it's not that things necessarily retcon each other.
Yeah.
It's that maybe they both happened and we don't have the full picture yet, so you need to kind of come up with some way to
Yeah.
make it all work and stuff like
I
that.
I liked that part, that it was directing the audience without, like, it was being helpful in directing the audience. It wasn't like a complaint or an insult or like really making fun of them. It's like, hey, we've noticed you've been doing this. Try looking at it from another angle.
Yeah,
Wouldn't that be fun and helpful to all of us? Wouldn't
which,
that result in you writing us so much fewer angry letters?
who knows? Yeah, that might be exactly what it's about, because people still write in to comics and they still print them in the back of the issues of like, hey,
Yeah.
I just read issue 6 and it was great. I love this part, blah 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 blah. Or like, hey, in issue 7 you said this, but in issue 9 this is what happened, and what's the right thing? What do I believe? And I'm wondering if that is a self-referential thing for the
Mhm.
comic, if something in here that maybe I didn't pick up on, or I don't know enough She-Hulk continuity to have been clued in on, to be like, hey, something's not right here, and this is Dan Slott being like, hey, how about you just not worry about it and just have fun reading the book?
Chill.
Yeah,
Chill, everybody, chill.
just chill out, right?
So I don't know if like maybe last week you told me the wrong year for this book, or like you said 2014 and I heard
Did
2000
I
and or like you
say
said
2014?
2004 and I thought 2014.
I
I
might
was
be
under the impression this was a more recent comic than it actually is.
wrong.
And so that was one thing. I think the one thing that really bugged me was how like old hackneyed stereotyped all of the comic book store nerds were. Like,
Right.
why are these all like, scraggly dudes in t-shirts? Like, we
Well,
all know by now the world of comics. Well, you are, but like,
sure. So, yeah, I think I get where you're going with this, right? That's not the ideal picture of who reads comics nowadays, right?
hmm?
That, while I agree with you, I think a lot of comic book stores are like, the owners and operators are still that. Which is, it's not true of all of them, but like, I think that is something that is still prevalent, of just like, hey, these guys that opened up their shops in the 80s, they still own their shop, and it's just them, you know. So who knows?
I I was just like, okay, you're gonna get your scraggly dudes in t-shirts, but why are we in a 100% scraggly dude and t-shirt environment here? When the ones I have come to know are only like, 25 to 45% scraggly dude and t-shirt environments. But then you're like, oh, it's from 2004. I'm like, okay,
That
the
makes a
the
little
ratio
more
was
sense.
probably different back then.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe we back in 2004 we didn't have as many cute girls with dyed hair working in
Right.
comic book stores like I'm used to seeing now.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks to the Valkyries for that, because they had a whole organization of like women who worked in comic book stores
Oh
and
yeah.
stuff like that. Um, but yeah, I still thought that was one of my favorite parts, where he finally gets them to like work together to be like, well,
Yeah.
hey, maybe in this issue this was happening, which, wait, maybe means this one thing, and if I look here and I'll do it, and it's like, he got them to work.
Mhm.
I liked that a lot. That was fun.
I I said last week when you pitched this to me that I was legitimately hoping for courtroom stuff
Mm-hmm.
because that's something I've typically enjoyed whenever it shows up in a piece of entertainment. I'm trying to get deeper into it to find out if that is a genre I do overall like, or
Courtroom
if I've just
drama.
happened to like the instances I have run into. Like, let me really quantify this for myself.
Sure.
But what I like about it is that let's solve this problem not using a big fight scene, but with just like words and logic and like little tiny details like that. That's what I enjoy so much. It's everybody talking their problems out in
Sure.
courtroom scenes.
Yeah.
And I
I
like all the interesting, like, logic puzzles we get into. Like, I like when there's that man who was he was like a safety inspector at a factory and he fell into a toxic vat like you do, and he comes out as like super strong and like he's this amazing big beautiful strong hero, but he's like, I rolled over in bed and I almost crushed my wife. I'm too
right.
big and too strong. I want to sue my company for damages and things like that. And the company's like, well, we only pay out if you die. That didn't kill you. It made you better, if anything. So they're trying to figure out how they're gonna like get the guy the money he needs when on, from the company's point of view, it's like, no, you're so much better off. There is nothing worse about you since you fell into that toxic vat. Like, you should be
Mm-hmm.
paying us. And eventually they figure out, oh, he's like
Like a
somebody just
whole
comments like,
new
oh, he's like a whole
person.
new man
Yeah.
now. Yeah, and they're like, oh, he's a whole new man now. And if he's a whole new man now, then the old man is
He's dead.
dead. And we can make that company pay out for killing an employee. Stuff like that. That's what I'm here for.
Right? I really like I really want the Disney Plus TV show to be that, to be this Law and
Yes.
Order style show, but with these like low rent super villains that have these
Yeah.
just the like the most stupid mundane problems like that. Some guy fell in a vat of acid and now he has super strength and almost killed his wife in his sleep. But just, like, it's stupid stuff
I
like that.
think I think what we want is the Marvel Comics version of Harvey Birdman, attorney at law.
Kind of, yeah, kind of.
Something between that and Ally McBeal. I don't want it to get as serious as Law and Order.
So,
Right in the Harvey to Ally. Ally is where I want us to be at.
have you ever watched the show iZombie on
I have
CW?
not.
You should absolutely watch that because it is fantastic. But that is like a similar tone that I want for the She-Hulk show. So it's a crime of the week type of show, but with a zombie twist. The zombie in like
Isn't it like a
infection has
chew thing?
it's basically the exact same thing as Chew, the comic, but the iZombie TV show is also based off of a comic book of the same name, but apparently they have very different plots. Who knows? But the main character, yes, is a zombie, and when she eats brains, she picks up the character traits of the person that she ate. So if she eats, some big old tough guy, then that is her character for that episode. But
Okay.
it is this thing of, yeah, when she eats these people's brain, she also starts to get visions and stuff if certain things happen, like if something reminds her of something that the dead person saw, she might have this vision. So she uses these powers to solve crimes and stuff like that. But I want like that wackiness and that like yes, you
Yeah.
actually are solving crimes and you actually do have good character moments in there and stuff, but give me the wackiness on top of that. give me some court case between Howard the Duck and George Lucas, like we saw referenced in this comic. Like I want stupid stuff like that. It would be so funny. It would be fantastic.
And you can take it all kinds of places. I don't like the cosmic stuff as much as I like the stuff on Earth, but I do appreciate the concept that Jennifer Walters has become such a great lawyer that the living tribunal's cosmic magistrate comes down and is like, would you like to be magistrate of your sector? Like you see all the time, like great warriors being called from their home planets to join a great league of warriors, but it's never for like anything else. It's I like that she gets called on as like, well, this is the greatest lawyer of Earth. Come join us, space lawyers.
Yeah, I like it's fun and it's wacky to see that stuff, but yeah, like once we got off of Earth and she was not in like an Earth courtroom, then I lost a lot of interest, because it was, I don't really know who the living tribunal is. I don't really know, like I know that they're,
but the name says it all.
Right, they're a tribunal who are still living, sure, but yeah, like Guardians were there, but they weren't really there. They weren't there as the Guardians of the Galaxy, but it was just like I know a lot of these characters, but I don't care about what's happening here. I don't care about this whole boxing match thing. Like I want her back in the courtroom. Give me Howard the Duck.
I liked every time they would apply.
Yeah.
I liked every time they would apply that courtroom tactic to all the space battles. Like, I really liked when, like, fairly early on in the comics, she's working out with Pug and she's working out in She-Hulk form, and he's like, "Why do you work out as She-Hulk and not as Jennifer?" And he's like, "Well," and she's like, "Well, I'm stronger this way." And he's like, "Yeah, you're exponentially stronger than Jennifer." And she doesn't get it until issues later that she's like, oh, the stronger Jennifer is, the stronger She-Hulk is. If I do all of my training as Jennifer, then She-Hulk is so much stronger, and that's how I beat this guy. Yeah. And if I call into, the cosmic, the infinity gem on his head, if I say, well, that's an external weapon and he's not permitted to have that by the rules, that's how she gets him. Every time the logic was used in support of one of these space battles or anything like that I dug. But I like Earth. I like the law offices. I like this little pocket in New York City they're in.
Exactly. I had something to say about the couple issues that I read that were the wrong ones we weren't supposed to read. I don't remember what it was now. I think it was about her. She gets back to the courtroom. There's like a weird time travel case that she did.
Isn't it like I might be getting them all mixed up, but I think it's one of the little cases that like one of her coworkers is doing that she just like walked past, where it's a guy who, like Captain America, was like frozen or something and was believed to be dead, and now decades later he woke up and he's like, I have no assets. Can you like reverse my will so that I can just have money to live on?
That was an interesting one, but no, the time travel one that happened in the ones after this, there was a guy that shot another guy seemingly in the back, and then it was this weird like time travel thing of like, oh well, that guy was there to kill me, so it was actually in self-defense, but this and that, and they're all the same person, and it was strange. But I remembered what I was going to say. You mentioned Pug.
Yes.
And he's a swell guy. I think that describes him the best, right?
Yeah.
But they do this like, I don't even know what you would call. It's not the like will they won't they, but it's like he has this crush on Jennifer and she is just oblivious and is completely looking in the opposite direction, and he's
Mhm.
always being trampled on, right? Um and they do.
Yeah, and like she
Go ahead.
no, like she does sincerely really like him. Like they are buddies.
He's a
She
nice
does
guy, yeah.
appreciate his friendship, and he's not wallowing about it or anything. She's like, well, that didn't work. Maybe next time. Like it's not, he doesn't get mad at her or too down in the dumps. He like modulates his feelings about
Yeah.
this situation and her obliviousness very well.
Yeah, he takes it all in stride.
Hmm.
But the poor guy, they do the funniest
Yeah.
visual
And she
joke.
goes to space for like 3 months.
Yeah, well, they,
3 months. And
they,
he's still there, like feeding the fish.
yeah, right. But they do the funniest visual gag in the couple issues after what we read. That was like the one good thing I saw, and I went back and I was like, they just pulled a fast one on me. I get it now. This is great. So in what we read, she kind of reconnects with Jameson's son.
Oh, yeah.
I forget his name.
John
Yeah,
Jameson.
that
Astronaut Colonel John Jameson.
yeah. Which it like the whole issue with Spider-Man is a good like who's who in the Spider-Man universe thing. It's great, but so she kind of reconnects with John Jameson, and they kind of have this thing going on. And
Hmm.
then in the issues after what we read, there's a scene where she's walking home with Pug, and they go into their apartment building, and they go into the same apartment. And so it's this idea, like not knowing where the relationship had kind of been or stuff like that. It was like, oh, okay, they're going home together. Okay, Jennifer, sure, go for it. And then you turn the page, and it's one of those things where the conversation seemingly continues from one page to the next, and the guy is off in the background. He's in the bathroom brushing his teeth or
Hmm.
something. You don't actually see him. You turn the page, and it's the next morning, and it's Pug. He's standing there at the stove. He's making breakfast, and then Jennifer walks out in her pajamas. She's in like an extra big sweater and her panties, and that's it. And she walks out and she goes, "Oh, good morning, Pug. Are you making breakfast?" And at first you're like, "That's a strange way to greet
Yeah.
someone you just slept with." And then as like she's, I think she says one more thing, that's when John Jameson walks out, and as he does, Jennifer goes, "I'm so sorry if we kept you up last night from being too loud." And you're just like, "Oh, poor Pug. It wasn't him that she slept with."
Oh, no.
He wasn't the one in the bathroom behind. Like, you see them enter the same apartment, and then like the whole thing is you learn that Pug and to me it looked like Pug and John were roommates at this time now, which might be the case. It might be
Yeah.
Pug and Jennifer are the roommates, but still, it was just like, oh, they pulled a fast one on me. What a good visual gag! I was just like, poor guy.
That's
Poor guy, man.
I liked Pug a lot. I liked all of her coworkers. I'm really interested to learn more about Mallory Book because
Mallory Book, yeah.
she's pretty much classically this. She's the mean girl of the office. Like, she's very, very good at what she does. And she's very pretty and she's very successful. And they call her the face who's never lost a case.
Right.
And she's like not being overtly, she's not malicious. She's not absolutely malevolent, but she is kind of just using Jennifer for Jennifer's skills and not really seeing her as a full person yet. And I'm like, I know we're gonna get to that issue eventually where the two of them are like, I don't know, stuck in the office late some night working on a case, or like maybe they're in an action situation together or something, and like those walls break down and we get to learn about Mallory Book. Like, this will inevitably happen, and we just didn't get there in these 12 issues we read.
Yeah. She is kind of the character that I feel like I was trying to allude to at the start, where it's like, here is the woman who is tough as nails, who just does not let anyone get to her, and maybe to a lot of her coworkers, like, she is that bitch. Like, she is just that, like, you don't want to mess with her. She's the boss. She is the boss lady, and yeah, like you start to see, as Jennifer is put outside of her comfort zone, you start to see them separate and go in different directions, though, right? Of like, I don't have to be like her. Like, I don't have to be that, like, unlikable, like, if that makes sense.
Like, the Jennifer we see back in college wasn't having any fun, but liked and admired fun from afar. Wished she could have fun. And Mallory Book is more of like, there's a difference between a person who's not having any fun and a no-nonsense person. Right. And that's who Mallory Book is.
Yeah. Exactly.
We haven't talked about the best character yet. Haven't even mentioned him. Awesome Andy.
Awesome Andy. I have never heard of him before.
I hadn't either, but he's great. He's just our good new big robot boy running around in his shirts and ties and his short pants with a chalkboard around his neck.
Because he just
writes a little message to show you. His head's a square. No features on it. Big square.
He's not even a TV head, which is what you would expect him to be, right? And he could like do the thing where he changes the channel to the
he has to write on a chalkboard.
He has to write it all down. But
God, I love the couple pages where you see like Andy's day. And you see that his coworkers are asking him, like, oh, dude, did you see the big game? Which one did you watch? Because this is New York, and they've, they're so big they have to have two whole baseball teams. They've got the Yankees and the Mets, and Andy's a Mets fan. They're like, bet you're excited to see that new Mets game tonight. And he's got like the logo drawn on his chalkboard. And like Mallory asks him, Andy, I'm going to need you to stay late and work on this. And he just shows her the chalkboard, and she's like, I don't know what this means.
It's fantastic. I hope we get a character like him in the Disney Plus show. I don't know if he's gonna be that big or if they're gonna change him somehow, but yeah, like, give me a version of Awesome Andy.
We always need good, innocent, pure robots, especially if they're wearing shorts. I love robots who wear clothes when they don't have to. Robots in clothes. I want it on a calendar. I pay it a day every year.
That's funny. Yeah. Oh man. So what did you think of the whole thing with Titania?
I barely knew anything about She-Hulk. I told you everything I know. I'm like, well, she's Bruce Banner's cousin, and she got a blood transfusion, and she's a lawyer. So I'd never heard of Titania. And I I did like that almost as soon as she shows up, there's her origin story too. It's like, no, we're not going to leave you waiting on this. Here's everything you need to know about Titania, like right up front.
Yeah.
And she's got a very sympathetic backstory. And it shows, and she's not very different from Jennifer. She was also that kind of shy, kept to herself. Whereas, okay, Jennifer chose to isolate herself for the sake of her studies. We don't get any panels, we don't get anything overtly
also
of like
don't get
somebody
like
inviting her
super
out.
young Jennifer. We get college age.
Yeah, so maybe she was teased as a child and then she isolated herself. Or maybe she did have a past of people inviting her out and she's like, no, I really ought to, hit the books, get down and study. So we don't know exactly what Jennifer's situation is.
Right.
But Titania, Mary, she was like the brunt of the litter in this big family. She was always left behind. She never she was shorter and like scrawnier than the other girls at school, and they were all superstars, and she was just left in the dust at every opportunity. Her one friend was like a 35-year-old woman who worked at the grocery store with her.
Right.
It was also very sweet. I did like the two of them. I do love whenever we get a friendship where the two people are very different ages from each other. And I loved seeing this 18-year-old girl and this like full grown woman just being peers and best friends.
Yeah. So I've heard the name Titania. I think, if I'm not mistaken, there's an issue of Jason Aaron's run on Thor shortly after we get Jane Foster Thor, where they still don't know who it is yet. They still don't know it's Jane Foster.
Yeah.
And she comes down to Earth, and Crusher Creel is robbing a bank or something like that with Titania, and Jane Foster comes down and just smacks him with Mjolnir, and almost knocks him out. And then Titania comes out and is like, "Wait, you're a woman? That's great. I love this. This is fantastic. You know what? We'll put the money back. We'll just go home. Like good for you." Like,
I like that.
She's just sitting there like girl power, right? Like,
you know what? I admire you so much. I'm not gonna do the crime anymore. I take the crime back.
Right? Yeah. So I've seen her with that, but besides that, I've not seen much of her. I will say that I was very sympathetic to her backstory, to the point where whenever She-Hulk called her skater, I was like, come on, Jennifer, don't call her that. Like that's not nice. Now you're the bully. You know, now you're the bad guy. But yeah, like I don't like it. It was sympathetic enough for me to kind of cringe when she called her Skeeter, but not enough to be like, I'm actually gonna root for Titania here in this one. Like, yes. I still never wanted to root for her, but it was just like, all right,
like you get it,
kind of bad.
You understand her. Yeah. Another thing, a little detail I liked, is that she starts this romance with this other criminal she met on Battle World. Like, the Beyonder brought these guys together, and that's great.
Yeah.
And she marries him, which we don't see. It's just mentioned once.
Creel.
And then she lost her friend, lover, confidant, and husband, Crusher Creel. And there's comic book characters, they're all dating each other. But I feel like I hear of very few marriages. It's just like, nice, refreshing. It's like, oh, I'm proud of you kids. You went to the altar with it.
There you go. Yeah.
Every time I get to hear about, oh, somebody actually got married out here.
So you might already know this, but for a little context, Crusher Creel is the one that Matt Murdock's father fought in the ring the night he died. Or at least that's
Oh,
usually it. I
that does
don't
sound
remember
kind of
the
familiar.
original
Yeah.
stuff, but yeah, that's also the case in the Netflix show, the Daredevil Netflix show. That's who he fought. Crusher Creel is also a villain that appears multiple times on Agents of Shield. And I think there was a reference to him in Spider-Man Far From Home.
There's a Crusher Hogan fighting poster.
Oh, true. That might be
There might
what I'm
also
thinking
be
of.
something for Crusher Creel. I don't know. They could fit a lot of crush in there.
Yeah, but yeah. So he's a well-known D-list villain,
Okay.
right? His power is that he can touch any object and like absorb the material. Like he can turn into that material. So if
Yeah.
he touches concrete, then he can become concrete. Or if he touches
Flint
steel,
Marco. He also becomes sand.
yeah, yeah.
I did
So,
like how jam-packed these issues were
mhm.
with just other people. There's so many characters going on, and it's never it. And I'm a new person. I'd never heard of Crusher Creel. I'd never heard of Titania. I'd never heard of a lot of these people, but it never felt overwhelming. This was a really good way to get me just like a sampler platter of a bunch of people that are
Yeah,
out there in the Marvel universe without it being overwhelming, because a lot of it's like this is just another criminal in Battle World, because it's a
yep.
lot of people you don't really need to pay attention to.
You
It's
don't
just
need to know their
another prisoner in
backstories
like the pimp
or
prison. Yeah.
yeah. It's
It's just
just
like an
like
assortment of faces and names, but
bad guy A.
they're introduced well. I feel like this was a very helpful title for me. Like I will remember people in the future because I'm like, oh right, that guy was in
She-Hulk.
She-Hulk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Hercules. I know him. There you go.
it it was I had to keep reminding myself. I'm like, oh, I've read Hercules in something before. I'm like, yeah, in All Star Superman. He's a public domain character. He's in all of the comic book universes. You haven't met this Hercules
Yep.
before.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. Um. Let's see. Was there anything else that I wanted to? I guess for me with the Titania stuff, especially the fight
Mhm.
at the end there, I kind of like how everything came together. Where
Yeah.
the Infinity Stone came back into play. The kind of hex that Scarlet Witch put on
Yes.
her
Yeah. Which
kind
is
of
from
came back
like
into
issue
play.
2 or 3. I
Yeah,
liked how I liked how these comics were paced, how there would be little things that seem like they've already completed their payoff
exactly.
that
Yeah.
early, and then they come back again
Hmm.
much later.
Exactly. Yeah, I just like how all of those little pieces from throughout the book kind of finally culminated in like, hey, I can use this and the stone from here and this over here and that and boom, done. And the day is saved by
Mm-hmm.
the Powerpuff Girl. But yeah, like I thought it ended well. I think this is a great 12-ish issues that you can hand to someone and be like, hey, if you're
Yeah.
interested in this upcoming Disney Plus show, here's a story that you really don't necessarily need to know any other comic book continuity,
No.
as long as you understand, hey, they live in a world with superheroes, so superhero like stuff has happened. We're just gonna kind of take it from there. Like that's really all you need to know, and I think it's a good like
Yeah.
bite size. Hey, here's what you can expect.
Yeah, I think so. It mentions a lot of other parts of comic continuity, but I never felt like I had something missing. Everything it introduces, it explains pretty much everything you need to know, and it doesn't really go further or not far enough.
Mhm.
I think if you're if you're a layperson, if you're like, I've seen all the movies, I want to try reading a comic, I think the only things would be confusing are the fact that it's like it's a different Ant-Man and Wasp. I had to keep reminding myself like that's not Scott and Hope. That's that's other people. And then
Scott and
you go
Janet,
to
yeah.
space and yeah, and then you go to space and Gamora is dating Adam Warlock.
Right, yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, remember Drax is green in the comics and not gray. Like those are the only little details, and if you've got those, you can manage it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think even the I think pretty much the biggest thing they reference, or like the biggest comic event that they really reference, is the Infinity Gauntlet stuff. Which,
Yes.
if you've seen the Marvel movies and you've seen all, like, it's almost the exact same thing. Like, you kind of can get the
Yes.
gist of it just based off of that, right? Like, you don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily need to read those comics, but even if you hadn't read either of them, yeah, it's not necessary to know what happened. They explain, like, oh, there was this big event, a lot of people died, we erased all of their memories when they came
Yeah.
back, that's why they don't. But like, and yeah, and then there's that moment where they explain, like, well, it's in this comic, so the government approved it, and that's why people remember. But yes,
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy stuff, but it's all in there. So I think this ended up being a very good pick, something good for us
Yeah.
to read in anticipation of that show, because I have no idea when it's even supposed to come out. They were just like, we're working on it.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, so
This was fun. This was a fun read anyway, whether there was a show on the horizon or not.
exactly. And I cannot get away from that song Tub Thumpin', which was in the start of this comic. It was in issue 1 of the She-Hulk comics after we read. Go listen to our Captain's Log episode, because I told a whole story based off of that. But good stuff. I had fun
Mm-hmm.
with this.
I think my only recommendation, it just is Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law, because it's a show I forget about, but every time I remember it, it's like, I love Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law.
It's so wild.
That also has a continual mystery about why somebody has an eye patch. It's a lot like the MCU.
Yeah. Good stuff. That I think is a good recommendation. Have you said you were thinking about diving into more courtroom style stuff? Do you have something in
Yeah.
mind that you might dive
Don't know.
into
I was
next?
just uh I was just at my parents' house and my dad put on uh, like some dull military movie with a court martial scene in it, and that was the one part I perked up for. I'm like, maybe I like courtroom stuff, no matter what context you put it in. So I don't know. This is a new thing I may explore. You may not hear results from me in a year.
Okay, gotcha. So I have I guess 2 recommendations, I believe. First one, in a similar kind of, hey, let's take a bunch of the kind of no-name low lifes of the Marvel universe. I would say you guys should read The Superior Foes of Spider-Man. This was a book that came out right when Superior Spider-Man was coming out. Long story short, Peter Parker and Dr. Octopus switched bodies right as Dr. Octopus was dying. So it is Dr. Octopus in Peter Parker's body being like, huh, this guy was an idiot. I will be the superior Spider-Man. But the Superior Foes of Spider-Man, they're trying to remake the Sinister Six, but they only have 5. And it's just these villains who cannot do anything right, and they're trying to steal
I
stuff,
love
and
this.
everything just goes wrong, and it's terrible, right? And they all hate each other, and they're like, "Why do I continually work with this guy?" Like, so I would say read that because it's that same like wackiness, sense of humor, as well as just like street level. This is not some like big world ending event. We're not really going out to space. Let's just go rob a bank. But here's like Ocean's 11, but from the perspective of the Sinister Six minus one. Right. Right. And things just go terribly wrong. So I would say that. And then my second one, I know there's not enough, but I would say go watch the Daredevil Netflix show, because there is some courtroom stuff in season 2.
See, I wanted more.
The Punisher is in that one, so
I did see season 2. That's the one with Clancy Brown. Yeah, I did watch the first 2 seasons of Daredevil. Really liked them. Again, I found myself wanting more law.
Yeah, same.
Just lawyer some more, please. That's more interesting for me to watch than you punching ninjas.
Exactly. But that being said, there is the law stuff in there, and Matt Murdock's character is another lawyer in the Marvel universe, right? So he like, there is still that like, how do I grapple with the law in a world where aliens attacked New York last year? How do I, or just
that,
or like as a like vigilante myself who's actually breaking the law and doing all that stuff, how do I represent the law then in a courtroom? So there is some fascinating stuff with that too. So those are my recommendations.
Okay. Are you ready for pitches?
I am ready, Melissa.
Okay. So previous themes you and I have used this year. You pitched me 3 mindfucks, and we ended up watching Perfect Blue. And I pitched you 3 movies where I knew there was a twist, but I didn't know exactly what the twist was. Okay. And we ended up watching the Matthew McConaughey boat nightmare Serenity.
What was that movie? Why was that even made? I still don't know.
A baffling time for us all as a country and society. My pitches this week, kind of in that vein. I found the 3 weirdest movies I could.
Okay.
Just general, just all around weird. Like, I wanted ones where I would read the synopsis and you'd say, "Excuse me?"
Okay.
All right. Pitch number 1 is a movie from 2010. The director's name is Quentin Dupieux, something French like that. This movie is called Rubber. The synopsis for this movie is a sentient tire.
Yeah.
Huh?
I
a
thought
sentient tire rolls through the one. Yes. A sentient tire rolls through the desert, using the power of its mind to make small animals and human heads explode. Also, the tire's name is Robert.
Excuse me?
My brother told me about this movie years ago, and it's been on my list for a long time. And I suddenly remembered its existence, because I don't know if I've ever heard anybody besides my own family mention this movie. I remembered its existence this week, and I'm like, I gotta pitch Kyle.
Wild.
Yeah, I gotta pitch Kyle that tire movie. Pitch number 2. This movie, it's from 2009. It's directed by more French names, Stéphane Aubier and Vincent Pitard. I totally took 4 years of French class. You can absolutely tell. Mm-hmm. This movie is named A Town Called Panic. Have you ever heard of this movie?
This one, no.
This is a stop motion animated film. Don't picture like Studio Leica or anything like that. It looks a little bit more like Gumby
Okay.
or Robot Chicken. It's a lot more plasticky and stilted. That's the
Play-Doh-y.
aesthetic of it. That's
Yeah.
an artistic choice. So this movie stars three plastic toys who live together: cowboy, Indian, and horse. And it's Horse's birthday. And Cowboy and Indian want to get him a gift. And so they want to build him a brick like kind of barbecue grill in the backyard. And instead of ordering 40 bricks, they accidentally order like 40,000 bricks. They're like, "Oh no, this is too many bricks. We charged them to Horse's credit card. He's going to be mad. Also, this present was supposed to be a surprise. Where do we put all these bricks? Let's put them where he's never going to look. Let's put them on the roof." And
Okay.
so then all the bricks collapse their house, and it just turns into a. This is what the back of the Blu-ray says, because I bought this film.
Oh, goodness.
Cowboy and Indian's plan to surprise Horse with a homemade birthday gift backfires when they destroy his house instead. Surreal adventures take over as the trio travel to the center of the earth, trek across a frozen tundra, and discover a parallel underwater universe where pointy-headed and dishonest creatures live.
Oh my god.
This is a delight. I'll tell you this right now. I heard the film critic Leonard Maltin mention this on a podcast, and the only way for me to get a copy of it was to buy it. I don't know if I've ever heard. Again, this is not a well-known movie, but I bought it. I've watched it a couple times. Great. Truly a unique film. Pitch number 3 is a movie that I'm sure you have heard of. This is Being John Malkovich. See, I didn't even try to tease you with the year and director first. Yep, this is from 1999, director Spike Jonze. A puppeteer works in a physically small office and discovers a portal that leads literally into the head of movie star John Malkovich. I have been puzzled by the existence of this movie for the past 20 years of my life. I know the concept, but I don't get it because I haven't seen it. And I've been meaning for years say, I'm going to sit down with that weird head movie. I barely even know who John Malkovich is, but I want to get inside there. I want to know. This might be the year, Kyle, if you pick this one.
Okay.
So our picks are Rubber, A Town Called Panic, or Being John Malkovich.
Oh, man. This is a difficult.
These are all. I think these are all winners. I am going to take a sec and Google where you might even be able to watch A Town Called Panic, because I forgot about that part, which I always do when I already own a copy of it. I forget how to tell you where you can get it.
I think I can rent it on Amazon Prime Video, and I guess I don't have Amazon Prime Video.
And whatever Tubi is, Tubi's free. Learn about Tubi.
To be or not to be? That is the question. I don't know, man. I think I want to go with... I think I want to go with Rubber.
Okay.
Because I've heard this is a horror film, but I don't know how something this wacky and just what? Why is this a thing? How is this a horror? I don't know.
It sounds like, well, the tire makes things blow up, so I imagine it does have this kind of like gruesome Videodrome kind of effect.
Sure.
Maybe there's a lot of tension surrounding this tire.
Right?
I don't know.
You don't want the tire to come chase you down and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah, like I am very curious to see how this is an entire feature film beyond just being like a short or something like that. I'm not saying I don't believe in it. I'm just very, very excited.
So weird.
Now's the time for me to find out how is Rubber an entire movie.
Okay. we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna find out next week. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode 74, right? No, episode 75.
What you said earlier.
I think I have the wrong thing down here.
No, I've got odd numbers.
That's right. This is 74. I forget. So this has been episode 74 of the Whatnauts review show. Melissa, where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Wilkywit. That's WILKYWIT.
And I am at Yo Kyle Springer on Twitter and Instagram. We are at the Whatnauts on Twitter if you guys want to stay up to date with all of our shows. TheWhatnauts.com is where you can find all of our other podcasts, as well as whatever podcatcher you use. You can find all our stuff on there just by searching The Whatnauts. And if you like what we do, patreon.com/The Whatnauts is where you can support us for as little as $1. You can get access to the live streams of this podcast. You can get episodes early. At the $3 tier, we have a bunch of exclusive content. We also want to give a big shout out to our patrons at the $5 tier. So thank you so much to Christine and to Sam for helping us out and for keeping the mics on and the lights on and helping us out making this content. That being said, we will get out of here and we will see you guys next week. Adios.
Bye.
Thank you so much for checking out that episode of the Whatnauts review show. Leave a comment below what you think would be an interesting court case for She-Hulk, for Jennifer to take on. That might be interesting to see. In the meantime, go subscribe to our channel right up there. We have a ton more podcasts like this one down in that corner right down there that you guys might like. You guys should absolutely check it out. Thank you. We will see you next time.